What's up, everyone? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. So another album that caught our eye that was coming out on the 10th of April was Benighted's new album, Obscene Repressed. This came out on Season MS Records. This is the band's 9th studio release. They've been around since 1998 from France. And the only remaining original member is the frontman Julian, which he is definitely the anchor of this band with all his vocal insanity. We actually had the pleasure of meeting this guy last year, actually a little bit over a year ago.
Yeah,
in
just
Detroit.
over a year, yep.
Really cool guy, super awesome live set too, and my god, this dude can do a lot of crazy shit with his voice.
Like almost on a Travis Ryan scale.
Yeah. So the album opens up with the title track, and right away you get a little bit of atmosphere, I call it.
Sure, something is dripping.
Something nasty is dripping. It doesn't sound necessarily like water. It's kind of thicker. Maybe blood? Maybe blood. Moves right into a scream and then deathgrind insanity. This band is very comparable to Aborted, except this is like Aborted on bath salts. This is such a frantic attack on the senses right away.
Yeah, like imagine Aborted didn't complete riffs. Like imagine there were no really heavy, groovy moments in Aborted.
And if there were, it was like that, and then we got to move on and hit you with something else.
The transitions were almost like car bomb speed.
The album is loaded with machine gun riffs, and machine-like is definitely something to compare this to. It is very mechanical, very precise.
Yes.
And vocally, it's probably one of my favorite things on here is the frontman and the backup vocalist and guitarist really know how to interchange and throw out some really cool vocal cadences. And really good use of their guest stars on here, which we'll get into in a little bit.
There's almost not a break in vocals, because there's not a lot of jam sections.
Things move fast, and pretty much all phases of this album. One thing I thought was kind of cool is hardcore elements really come into this. There are groovy sections that don't really scream deathcore or brutal death, but actual, like, old hardcore, like Sick of It All and stuff you used to get on Victory Records. And the vocal cadences are actually kind of follow that too. They don't go down for the low, gurgly, brutal death vocals or the even wilder pig screams, which pop up periodically on here. But it's kind of interesting to hear that element, because it's an element that doesn't seem like it was in a lot of earlier Benighted stuff. And it seems a little played up in certain songs like Brutus or Starving Beast or Implore the Negative, which I thought was a highlight. Now, Brutus is one I want to talk about just because it's kind of a case of them trying to squeeze in too much. It starts off with a really surprisingly melodic, clean guitar part, and I was kind of wondering how they're going to work this into the song.
Yeah, it's like an acoustic guitar thing, and it's really pretty, and I thought, like, this is an interesting segue for them.
Yeah.
So
an experiment with melody.
Yeah, I thought, like, okay, are we going to get a little bit of, like, melodic tech or something, and then disappears. When it explodes in, it just reminds me of Origin.
Right away, it just kind of abandons it. The entire time I was listening to this song, I was kind of wondering, when are they going to kind of return to that, or maybe play it up in a heavier melody, but it work in that melody somehow, and it's just kind of abandoned. And there's a lot of moments on this album where they kind of introduce an element and then immediately just abandon it. The song Muzzle starts off like napalm death, just full-on grindcore. I love the vocal play out on this one, like the back and forth trade-offs between the two vocalists. And out of nowhere, it takes a complete 180 and does a jazz number?
So it reminded me of, like, the jazz grooves in, like, early Candiria.
Yeah.
Kind of like early Candiria meets, like, later Exhibius. By the time you realize what's happening, it's done.
Yeah.
But, like, when you do realize it, you're like, what the fuck is this?
And it kind of detracted from the song because, like, the entire time I was listening to it, when we moved past it, the next section was good. But it really made this part stand out because it wasn't necessary. Like, you could have just chopped that out and tossed it. And the entire time, I was trying to really enjoy that track. And even the next track, I was thinking, like, wait, why was that there?
Wait, exactly. And I heard the same thing. I jammed this at work today, and I was like, what? One that I really enjoyed was Casual Piece of Meat. The start for this, again, was I guess what you'd call a little bit more sullen than their straightforward, grind approach. It was just very melodic death it reminded me of.
Yeah, it had some blackened elements. I thought that was really cool.
Yep, I noticed blackened when it got around that like Black Dahlia Murder group part.
There's a little bit of like Belphegor in there. And it was interesting to hear them take on a couple of different extremes in there. Like, that actually really worked, and then towards the end we get some fun coughing and gasping and gagging.
It sounds like somebody dry heaving over a groove.
And it's kind of an interesting, I guess you'd throw in the atmosphere category, because there are spots in here where they'll end the song with a pig snort, or a vomit take, or they'll begin a song that has like a porn sample in it, which instantly reminded me of White Zombie. The atmosphere in here is interesting. There's like really creepy quotes that come in too, and it's kind of like an aborted sort of thing where aborted likes to throw in lots of horror-like atmosphere to go with it, but some of this is just a little too weird.
But aborted's got a sense of humor when they do it too.
One that I thought was a really good standout in here, and really stands out as like a real individual track on here, was Smoke for the Skull. This one is almost just full-on death thrash.
Yeah.
This has the flat-out chuggy, thrashy machine gun guitars. Really has like sort of a deicide Vader-like feel. The song is just flat-out fast and aggressive. And it's a different kind of aggressive. It's like thrashier aggressive. It's not built around breakdowns. And it totally doesn't have any like brutal death aspects at all. Barely any grind aspects.
It's got some Slayer influences, I heard. Basically, like, all the parts just keep kicking you in the nuts.
After that is Implore the Negative, which was one of the lead-off singles. And this is where we get into more of the guest stars. Actually, it was a guest star before this, but we're going to lump them in this little segment. They have 3 different guest stars on here doing vocals that do an excellent job, and they all sound wildly different. Grimo from Cytotoxin is on Starving Beast, and his low roars and fast cadence really add another dimension to that song, because it gives Julian a chance to do some higher stuff and sort of play off of him. On Implore the Negative, we have Jamie Josta of Hatebreed, and what he does really works. The hardcore vibe, of course, comes out here, but it sounds like he's sort of shouting down a hallway because his vocals are a little bit further back in the mix. And you kind of get the sense that he is imploring people. Like, it actually has that sort of feel. And then in between that, Julian throws out his rapid fire, just what he does.
Yeah.
And this one actually threw on some, like, melodic death influences. Like, there was a little bit of, like, At the Gatesy sort of riffs in here. But I really like the dynamic between the 2 vocals on there because they're so distinctly different. And this song actually has some cool atmosphere to it.
Yeah, well, and I like the opening of this. The Sepultura tribal jam in the opener. Interesting for them. I didn't expect it, so... It's
a good build-up.
Yep.
And then the third guest vocal was from Karsten Jager, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, who is the frontman of Morgoth and Disbelief. And he adds a straight-up old-school death metal vibe. Very much in the realm of Asphyx, Master, maybe a little John Tardy from Obituary. But the song that he pops up on is rather special. At least the title caught me off guard right away. It's called Mom, I Love You the Wrong Way. I don't ever want to Google search this song.
I'm never going to Google search this. I feel like the results aren't going to be conducive to a good time.
I mean, unless you're into that sort of thing.
I'm all wholesome family fun. To me, I actually really like this song because the riff structure seems more focused on tech and on groove, but it doesn't lose the intensity. So, like, if that makes sense, like, there's way more going into these riffs in this song in particular than there normally are, but they never break, like, tempo. The drum work is nuts. Here's what I don't like, and it's the same thing I do like. The transitions in this song are all over the map. They encompass a really wide selection of different musical styles. It kind of gets that jazz groove back. It gets the funk groove back. There's just bass and drums jamming, which is really cool. That's great. I also don't like it for that reason, because they don't stick with anything long enough. Like, okay, these are cool transitions. You gonna make a song? No? You just... Okay. But I will say, even though there's crazy transitions, it's probably one of the most structured jams for them.
It is. It's kind of fun. And, like, there are some spots in here that I think are just flat out fun. Like Scarecrow is actually kind of punkish, and it has some really cool like angular guitar work that just kind of reminded me a lot of Suffocation, especially as Grace Descends, how that song opens up. And that one just has, like I said, some fun to it. It kind of has almost like a punkish D beat to it. But one of my issues was this album doesn't close particularly flashy. Undivided Dismemberment and Bound to Facial Plague are both good songs, but they don't really scream closer. Like, these songs could have been in the middle. I think, like, maybe Implore the Negative, or even Mom, I Love You the Wrong Way. That's difficult to say every time. Could have been at the end, because I think they were more dynamic. There was more going on in them, and they really just stood alone.
I do want to point out in Mom, I Love You the Wrong Way, the lead work in there is tasty. It's the only song where lead work appears. The only one. And that's another gripe I have. You're obviously really, really good at guitar. Both these dudes are obviously really good at guitar because of how intricate the riff work is. There's not a lot of, like, I like how they backed away from the slam thing, so it's not a lot of just big juicy breakdowns and, open chords and shit like that. Like, they're obviously technical riffs, and the solo in here is badass. Why not solo more often than once? Maybe?
Overall, I think this is a fun listen. Like, it shows some growth in the band. Like, if you go back to their older albums,
even the record before it.
Yeah, there was just kind of very much a singular focus. They're kind of branching out, trying some different things, but they're kind of just trying sample sizes. And there's a lot of moments in here I would have liked to have seen continue a little bit longer.
Correct.
So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. I dig it. I think it's a fun album. It's unbelievably energetic. Like, this album never stops. It is constantly going, and I love that sort of intensity. I just wish it wasn't so scattershot in spots. And maybe the pacing of the album, like switch around some tracks for a better flow of the album. But all in all, solid listen.
I'm going to give it a 3, actually. It was a little all over the map, which normally I dig, but it's execution of those things, when done in the correct order, make them okay. And I like the fact that it was definitely more experimental. I like hearing bands that are known for a typical genre branch themselves out a little bit more. Even if it doesn't work, they tried.
Yeah.
Not all of it was bad. And really, aborted on bath salts. I mean, it's you like aborted? Well, here, take this too, because you're going to need it to play it, 300 beats a minute for fucking half an hour. Yeah, so could have been better, could have been worse.
So, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Stay safe out there. Stay home. Don't go touching people.
Don't love your mother the wrong way.
Definitely don't do that. Catch you guys later.
Take care.